Nigeria, often called the Giant of Africa, is the continent's most populous country and home to its largest economy. Rich in natural resources, cultural diversity, and human capital, Nigeria seemed poised for greatness. In fact, during the early 2010s, it was regarded as a future global economic powerhouse. Yet today, its economy has contracted by nearly 50% from its peak, leaving economists and observers wondering what went wrong. Now, Nigeria's modern economy has long been driven by its massive oil reserves. Since the discovery of crude oil in 1956, the country has relied on petroleum as the backbone of its economy. By the early 2000s, Nigeria was Africa's largest oil producer, exporting nearly 2 million barrels per day. But oil wasn't the only story. Nigeria diversified into agriculture, manufacturing, and telecommunications. By 2014, it overtook South Africa as Africa's largest economy, with a GDP of over $570 billion. Urbanization started to boom, and industries like Nollywood, Nigeria's film sector, became internationally recognized. The country's young, tech-savvy population embraced the internet, spurring innovation and connectivity. For a moment, it seemed Nigeria might escape the resource curse that had plagued many oil-rich nations. But then the tide turned. So in 2014, global oil prices plummeted by 44%, dropping from over $100 per barrel to under $60. For Nigeria, this was catastrophic. Oil accounted for 87% of export revenue and 77% of government funding. The crash exposed the country's over-reliance on crude oil and highlighted the fragility of its broader economy. Suddenly, public spending, funded largely by oil revenue, became unsustainable. Projects were halted, salaries went unpaid, and inflation skyrocketed. By 2016, Nigeria entered its first recession in over 2 decades. Now, despite appearances, much of Nigeria's economic success in the early 2000s was superficial. Agriculture, which employed 70% of the workforce, suffered from low productivity. Only 1% of arable land was irrigated, and fertilizer use was very minimal. Farmers relied on manual labor and outdated techniques, which limited output. Meanwhile, the manufacturing sector faced challenges. Although industries were growing, they often lacked adequate infrastructures, such as reliable electricity and transportation networks. These efficiencies discouraged foreign investment and stunted their growth. Now, Nigeria's population is its greatest asset and its greatest challenge. With over 220 million people, it has Africa's largest workforce. However, the economy hasn't grown fast enough to provide jobs for its expanding population. By 2021, unemployment had soared to 33%, with youth unemployment surpassing 50%. Many Nigerians lacked access to subsistence farming, leaving them reliant on unstable wages or informal jobs. Poverty became more widespread even as the country's overall GDP seemed to grow on paper. Nigeria's vast oil wealth should have funded schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. Instead, much of it disappeared into the pockets of corrupt officials. Mismanagement of state resources became so pervasive that some estimates suggest billions of dollars are lost annually to corruption. Government-owned oil refineries, for instance, operate far below capacity due to poor maintenance, theft, and sabotage. Nigeria paradoxically imports much of its refined petroleum despite being one of the world's largest crude oil producers. This corruption undermined public trust and discouraged foreign investors who were already wary of Nigeria's unpredictable regulatory environment. Now, the question that arises is, can Nigeria bounce back? Well, despite its challenges, Nigeria's story isn't over. The country still has immense potential. Its youthful population could be a demographic dividend if harnessed correctly. Investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure could unlock growth and reduce poverty. The agricultural sector, for instance, remains underutilized. Expanding irrigation, modernizing farming practices, and improving market access could transform Nigeria into a breadbasket for Africa. Similarly, improving governance and reducing the corruption would restore investor confidence. Countries like Botswana have shown that even resource poor nations can thrive with strong institutions. So, in conclusion, Nigeria's economic collapse is a cautionary tale of how potential alone isn't enough. It's a reminder that natural resources, population size, and geographic location must be matched with good governance, infrastructure, and social cohesion. With the right reforms, Nigeria could still reclaim its place as Africa's largest economy, but until then, its story serves as a powerful example of how even the brightest prospects can dim without careful stewardship. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button down below. It really helps me out and lets me know that you're interested in seeing more of my content. Also, if you have any thoughts or questions about the video, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I always love hearing from you guys and getting your feedback on how I can improve myself. Thank you.